All right, everybody, it's just about time for the big one. We are 2 days away from the national championship game in Houston, NRG Stadium. The Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines will face each other, and the winner will be the undisputed, undebatable champions of all of college football for the season. So, first of all, it's nice to see a game between clearly the two best teams. At this point, I think it's kind of impossible to suggest anything else, especially with what happened to Florida State in that in their bowl game. The only team that I think you could debate injecting in here would be Georgia, and let's face it, Georgia did it to themselves by losing pretty handily to an Alabama team that kind of had a down season. So at the very least, we can say these are the two deserving teams to be here. But I also feel like they're the two best teams. I felt like Michigan was the best team in the country most of the year. They faded a little bit during the height of the scandal with the Harbaugh leaving for a little bit. I thought they looked a little bit weak in a couple games, but throughout the balance of the year, I did feel like Michigan was the best team. And Washington, I mean, they haven't lost a game yet, so they're at least that good. I'll say that. There was a stretch of football where they really weren't playing that well. For about a month and a half, they looked completely human. They were escaping every game they played, but somehow, some way, they're here undefeated. You can't take that away from them, and you certainly can't take away their last two games. Beating Oregon neutral field, beating Texas. You can't even call that a neutral field. It was like 80% Longhorns fans. So this feels like the right championship game. This does feel like the correct game. And obviously, first of all, I know that Michigan's going into this game as a relatively modest favorite. They're favored about as much as Texas was. And I know that this team does make a big deal out of playing the underdog role, which I support them getting their motivation however they need to get it. But it's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. The way I look at it is once upon a time, there was no national championship game, and it wouldn't have been settled on the field. Now, because we have this championship game and this playoff, it gets settled on the field. So I don't really care who's favored and who's the underdog going into the game because now you can settle it on the field. Like, if Washington does win this game, Michigan well, they won't be able to really complain about anything because they had a chance to win it and they didn't do it. If they lose this game, then there's nothing to complain about because they had a chance to prove it on the field. Same the other way. If Michigan wins this game and Washington feels like they were the better team, then it's like, well, you had a chance to prove it. It's not like it was in the old days where they would just vote at the end of the regular season and whoever they ranked number one was the national champion. So I'm not really too wrapped up in that kind of stuff. I'm not really too concerned about being an underdog in this game. I think it's probably pretty fair given the fact that Michigan has maybe the best defense in the country. But this is going to be an interesting matchup. And even though I've seen Washington play 14 games this year, and I've seen Michigan play a lot of games this year as well, I still don't totally know what to expect. That Michigan defense, like I said, I think they've allowed 9.5 points per game this year on average. Obviously, that's padded by playing some of the really bad offenses that you play. But even against good offenses, they've been pretty great. They're not allowing like 10 points, but they're allowing like 17 points, 20 points, 24 points sometimes. And that's typically getting the job done enough for them to get the win, like against Ohio State. They're really well rounded on that defense. They've got a lot of guys who I'm really excited to watch on Sunday and would not mind on the Seahawks, guys like Chris Jenkins, who I really, really like. Really like Junior Colson at linebacker as well. He may end up being my top linebacker in this class, along with Edgerrin Cooper. So I'm pretty high on that Michigan defense, admittedly. Like that's going to be tough to get around. The good news is, unlike Texas, you it's not an impenetrable wall to run against them. Like when we were going into that Texas game, my thinking was treat the interior of the Texas defense like an impenetrable wall. Do not run at them. Do not try to convert short third downs up the gut. Do not challenge Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy II. And we did a little bit, and there was not very much success. I think the best you can say is that we had a couple of goal line touchdowns where, I mean, that's great and everything, but you're only picking up a yard or two anyway. Like, there was very little ground to find up the gut against that team. Michigan, it's not like they're bad up front, but they're definitely not as good as Texas in terms of having those big bodies down there that just completely take you out of the ability to run the ball. So we will be able to get away with being a little more balanced and a little more conservative on offense. And if we decide we want to lean on that power running attack with Dylan Johnson, who looks like he is going to be at least healthy enough to play, it's not something that's going to be a complete anchor on us. It's not going to be like the Texas game where I was in stream getting furious that we kept running the ball up the middle. If we do it against Michigan, I get it. That is something that you should be able to do at least a little bit, even if it won't be great. Because realistically, nothing you do against the Michigan defense is going to be great. It's going to be very, very... it's going to be tough sledding. They've got talent up and down that roster. I'm sure they're going to try to be a little more physical with our receivers than some previous teams we played have been. We played good defenses this year. Texas had a good defense. Oregon had a really good defense, and we've done well against them. But I'm sure this Michigan defense is going to come out and try to be a little more physical with our receivers than those teams were. Now, I do think we have an advantage in that area, our receivers versus their secondary, but I'm also very mindful of the fact that there's some pass rush coming from that Michigan team that's going to be hard to deal with as well. And we are going to need Penix to play like he played last week, where he showed mobility and elusiveness and agility in the pocket I had not seen all season. I didn't think he could do that, and he showed a gear that I had not seen until that game, really. Like, we saw it a little bit last year maybe, but last week, what he did against Texas to keep plays alive, to extend the play, to move out of the pocket, to evade the rusher, and sometimes even run for yards, was remarkable. And it does give Michigan one more thing to have to worry about, because going into that Texas game, I'm sure Texas was thinking Penix is not really a threat with his legs. He's not a threat on the move the way that a guy like, even a J.J. McCarthy is. Or, certainly somebody like a Jaden Daniels is. But now we've given that dimension, Michigan has to think about that. And as good as the Michigan defense is, I one thing I was saying throughout the streak of football that Washington played this year, where they looked human, where they really didn't look that good on offense, I did say it is possible that getting Jalen McMillan back might push them into the stratosphere. And I kind of feel like it has. Like, this offense, I'm not going to say they're going to be perfect, because of course they're not going to be, but I will say that with McMillan out there, with Odunze, with Westover, with Polk, with Dylan Johnson, with all the things that this offense can now throw at you ever since McMillan got back, it does kind of feel like there's a certain degree of unstoppability with this offense. So they're going to have to prove it against the toughest possible defense, but it is possible that this Washington offense has found a gear that no team can truly shut down. Maybe they can contain it a little bit. Maybe they can have some success. I mean, technically, Texas had some success against our offense, and they still gave up 37 points, but that's my point. You're not going to keep them down. There's too much talent, too much ability, and it's not like the strength of that Michigan defense is necessarily in their secondary anyway, so there should be good opportunities. Now, the other side of the ball, my big fear about this game, the thing that I'm really concerned about, is we cannot stop the run. And that was evident against Texas. That was evident against, for the most part, Oregon. That's been evident all year. And for one reason or another, no team has been able to really take advantage of that. No team has been able to just control the game on the ground, win the game on the ground, and just say we're going to take the ball out of everyone else's hands and we're going to win this game as long as we can run the ball, because usually you can run the ball on Washington. And Michigan can run the ball. Now, statistically, they don't have a great ground attack. There are ground attacks out there that are much better. I think that in terms of rushing yards per game, they're not even top 50 in the nation. They average like 4.6, 4.7 yards a carry, I think. Actually, as a team, I think it's a little bit less than that. Now, a lot of that's because of the occasional sack on McCarthy, but even like Blake Corum, he's a good player for sure. He's got a lot of yards this year, like over 1,200 total yards from scrimmage. He's not one of these guys who's averaging 9 yards a carry. So it's not a great rushing attack, but it's probably good enough to go after this run defense. And we saw it last week. Texas ran the ball at will on Washington's defense. They just couldn't make the game about the run. They would fall into second and long. They would fall into these third and longs, and they would be put in situations where they couldn't run it because, oh, we're playing from behind. Oh, we're behind the sticks. Oh, we can't quite stay away from the passing attack because it's like a temptation. We're too tempted to go try to pass the ball here and there because we have Quinn Ewers, we have these great receivers. We can't just stay away from it forever. But I've gone through a lot of this season feeling like, if one of these teams just decides, look, we're just going to run the ball 50, 60 times and see if Washington can stop it, they might win. And I wonder if Michigan might be the team to do that. They kind of play like that anyway, right? They are a run first team for sure. They are a team that leans heavily on the run. McCarthy's good, but I'm not super worried about him in this game. I think if anything, if you force him to have to make a big comeback and make a bunch of plays, you're gonna have a pretty good chance to come out all right. But my number one fear about this game is just getting run over. Now, Michigan doesn't have Zach Zinter, which is a big deal. He was a big part of that rushing offense that they will not have in this game. But with what I see from this run defense, that is my fear. I'm not super afraid of their passing attack. I'm not super afraid of their quarterback putting on a Superman cape. I'm not super afraid of any of that. But yeah, they could run the ball for like 200 plus yards and just completely control the game that way. So that's really all I can say about this game. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Not saying I'm super confident we're going to win or anything, or that I even have confidence, period, that we're going to win this game, but I'm very eager to see how this matchup goes. I'm very eager to see how this matchup works. I'm eager to see if this offense is as unstoppable as I theorized it would be when they got McMillan back, because I do feel like that with him, our offense becomes nigh unstoppable. And it's there are some things like I don't look at this Michigan team and go, oh, they're definitely going to put 50 points up on us. They're definitely going to just run the ball. They're going to be like one of those great Alabama teams that would just score the touchdown every time they got the ball, or one of those Oregon teams that would just score 8 straight touchdowns in a game randomly. It's not like that. So I don't think it's going to be some crushing blowout unless it gets into turnovers. Like if we start turning the ball over, which, hey, we avoided in our last game. We avoided turnovers against Texas really well, and we're able to maybe not necessarily win the turnover battle, but keep it even. Hard for me to believe this game's going to get away from us, and if it's close at the end, then I'll rock with my quarterback to get it done, because he gets it done every single time we need him to, pretty much. So yeah, I will be live streaming this game in a couple days here. It's going to be fun. And I'm very, very proud and very, very impressed with everything this team has done this year. And nothing that happens in 2 games is going to change that. But, I mean, you're not going to have other opportunities like this. Opportunities like this do not fall out of the sky, right? We're losing Penix. We're losing Odunze. We're losing Fatanu. All those guys going to the NFL. We're losing Trice. We might be losing ZTF. We're going to be losing a lot of these key guys. And we might lose DeBoer. Who knows? His star is crazy on the rise right now, man. So when the opportunity's here for you, you got to take it. And this is a great opportunity for Washington to take. And if they can do it, then it becomes maybe my ultimate highlight as a Seahawks, sports YouTuber. Like, the Seahawks have not accomplished anything even close to this level during my actual time of making videos on YouTube. So let's find a way, man. Let's find a way. It's not going to be easy, not always going to be fun. I expect to be stressed out. I expect to have moments of wavering faith during this game. But winning is a habit, and this Washington team has fallen into the habit of winning pretty much all season. So why not think it can't happen one more time? All right, see you guys later. Bow down to Washington. Couple days away, boys.